And here we go. Welcome to the Conquer Food Show. I've got a great friend of mine. I think he's a great friend. I don't know. Maybe he'll come out in this.
I think so.
Maybe he'll come out in this podcast. But Simon Davies, who, if I was to think of all the people I know that are adventurers and get out and do challenges and stuff, you'd be up there in the top sort of 5. Bear in mind, I've got not big time in it, but friends with polar explorers and people that have rode the Atlantic. But I don't think there's many that have done quite as many events as you, and I've not run side by side by as many of them. We did a bit of time running together, so it's good to have you on the podcast.
Thank you.
So do you want to give us a little bit of a rundown then, Si, about some of the things you do or have done?
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously we met a couple of years ago on the Jungle Ultra, which is a kind of 150-mile run through the Amazon rainforest. Which is part of a series of runs by a company called Beyond the Ultimate. So they do a similar race in the ice, which I know you're queued up to do in just a few weeks' time.
Oh, can't wait.
A similar race to the desert. So there's 3 or 4 of their races that I've been kind of busy doing over the last kind of couple of years. But then before that, I've done some kind of big climbing trips, some kind of multi-day bike races, just bits and pieces really. I'm a kind of jack of all trades really, not particularly good at anything, but like to get stuck in and try some new things really.
Because I mean, we'll see what kind of questions come up. But one of the things, as I was listening to you there, I was like, Jesus, how do you fit it in? And I know people listening to this will be like, well, that's all well and good for him. You know, he can have the time off, he can do whatever. But you know, you're a family man. You've got kids. You're a business owner.
I am.
You know,
yeah.
And how do you kind of fit it all in?
I guess you have to work out what's important to you really. So. It's hard. It's certainly got harder in the last couple of years. My wife and I have had a couple of children, which means that you want to be around more in the evenings to, do bedtime, bath time, all that kind of stuff. The same on the weekends, but you still need to fit your training time in. So I guess over the last couple of years, I've just swapped stuff out. So instead of driving to work every day, I'll mix that up. I might run home from work one day, cycle in the next day, do my training on my lunch hours, train at horrible hours. So maybe when the kids have gone to bed, you get the turbo trainer out and do something in the kitchen. So you can still find that time. I guess it's just making it the number one priority in your life, really. Yeah,
it's one of those things where there's enough time for all the priorities in life. And if it's, if getting fit and challenging yourself is not a priority, well then no, there isn't any time. But there's plenty of time for EastEnders and Coronation Street and all that kind
exactly,
of stuff.
Yeah. We all sit on the sofa and watch TV, and we all sit in our cars probably more than we should. So I think, being a little bit smarter about how we use our time is probably the answer to that. So,
and have you always been like adventurous, and have you always sought out challenge?
Yeah, I think so. I think I've always been quite active. I sort of run a bit, and I've used to box a bit when I was younger, and do bits and pieces.
Hence the swelling and that.
Hence the face. But I think for me, it's much easier to stick to some kind of training regime if there's a goal.
Yeah.
If it's just sort of running for the sake of running, it's okay, but it's really easy to skip a session if it's dark or cold or wet or you don't feel good. Whereas if you're building up to an event, whether that's a race or a personal challenge, it's much more motivating to work towards a goal rather than just kind of floating along. And it doesn't really matter what that goal is. It could be your first 5K, it could be a marathon, it could be anything that you want it to be. But having something to aim for has been the secret for me, definitely.
So accountability, isn't it, really? But what other ways do you kind of hold yourself accountable and make yourself do those tough miles and on the cold mornings and stuff?
I think probably having something written down somewhere, like an actual plan. You can just write it yourself on a bit of paper, or you can use tools like Strava or Training Peaks or anything. But I think if you kind of sit down and work what that plan is, what events are you going to do, what mileage are you going to do, what gym sessions are you going to do. Kind of once I've sort of set it in stone, once it's in a plan, I'm quite good at following it.
Yeah.
And you don't have to follow it 100% as well. It doesn't matter if you have an odd day when you're not feeling good. It's okay to miss a couple of things here and there, but as long as you're hitting 80-90% of that plan, that's probably good enough.
And what a lot of people talk to us, they come to boot camp and they sort of say, right, if there's three things that we could give them, it's always motivation, it's always willpower, and determination. All three very similar things. What do you find motivates you, or what do you use to create motivation?
That's a good question, really. I'm not sure. I think I'm quite a sort of stubborn individual. So I think if I've said that I'm going to do something, then I'm pretty good at seeing it through. I think kind of like publicly committing to something, which is why the events work. So if you kind of say, right, I've signed up to a half marathon or a bike ride or whatever, like you've signed up to it, maybe sign up to it with a friend is a good idea as well. Then it's kind of got to happen, hasn't it? And if you know that event's 4 weeks away or 2 months away, it then means all those kind of training sessions that you might otherwise skip, you've got a reason to go and do them, because you know, if you don't do that session, it's just going to make that event even tougher or even harder. So it's definitely that goal setting that puts responsibility throughout the whole rest of the kind of training plan. Without that, if I don't train tonight, it doesn't really matter. It has no outcome. So it's really easy to skip it for the huge variety of reasons that we always have to skip training sessions. Whereas if you know it's coming and it's coming fast, it kind of puts the fear into you, I think, to make sure that you go and do the sessions that you need to do. Yeah.
So I mean, I've seen you in some low points, and you've seen me in some pretty low points.
For sure.
Well, and this is a bit of a loaded question, because if you don't say this, then I'm gonna draw this out of you, because it just makes me laugh. But what has been like your lowest point, and kind of what was going through your head at that point?
Well, like during an event.
Yeah.
Well, as you know, I tried to do a race called the Desert Ultra at the end of 2018, and I didn't make it. I DNF'd in that race. I think that's kind of the first thing that I've ever sort of failed at in a kind of a sporting context or a sort of challenge context, and that definitely hit me pretty hard, and you definitely spend a lot of time analysing that, like what went wrong, what could I have done differently, did I really need to quit, or actually could I have pushed through? So you do question all of those decisions that you made.
But I just put this into perspective. It's not a case of like you just stop running and then it's like, okay, that's enough for me. Talk us through it a little bit about what actually happened.
So it was strange, really. I went into the race feeling really good, like not overconfident, but as you know, you quite often go into these events and there's worries. You've got a little niggly injury, or you haven't done your training that you wanted to do, or you're worried about the kit or the climate or whatever. I went into this race off the back of a couple of successful races. My training had been great. I had no niggles, no injuries, so I felt really, really confident, and I was kind of just looking forward to the race. I set off on the first day, felt really good, was running along kind of at the head of the pack, up with the sort of front runners, felt just completely in control, and was genuinely just enjoying myself. Then I got to around the 20-mile point. So
it's in Namibia?
Yeah, it's in Namibia, yeah.
So temperatures up to...
it gets over 50, so it can hit like...
pretty warm.
Yeah, it's pretty hot. I don't actually think it was exceptionally hot that day, but it's warm. I hit a checkpoint after about 20 miles and thought, I'm gonna sit here for 5 minutes and just make sure I get some fluids on board, because I maybe haven't been drinking what I should. Drank like a recovery shake and just instantly started throwing up. And thought, okay, well, maybe I just threw that down too quickly. Yeah, no worry. So I took it really easy to the next checkpoint, which is maybe 10 kilometers away. And everything I tried to eat or drink just came back up. It didn't matter if I took small sips, even if I tried to like suck on a boiled sweet, just everything. I was just throwing up like uncontrollably. And I got to the next checkpoint, and the medics could see that I was not in a good state, Yeah. So they kept me there. They wouldn't let me leave. They kept trying to make me drink lots of fluid. Every time I drank it, I'd throw it up. So I ended up spending like maybe 3 hours or something at this checkpoint before I could eventually get on my feet. And I did push through, and I did finish that day. So I got to the end of that 50K stage. I was in a pretty bad state. I was just dehydrated, kind of no fuel. And once you're in that situation, as you know, it's quite hard to get yourself back.
Yeah. It's hard to recover sort of before the start of the next day, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. You know, if you're at home, you get a can of Coke, you get a pizza, you know, or whatever, you can kind of get the fuel in. But realistically, you don't have enough calories with you anyway. So, you know, when you've not been well and then you're trying to eat a sort of lukewarm spag bol and some tepid water, it's quite hard to, no matter how hard I try to sort of get the fluids and get the food down, I don't think I was able to really get myself in a good state for the next day.
That's not the time I was thinking about. Remember the time when you like to eat your regurgitated porridge?
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that was all right. I didn't mind that so much.
That wasn't a low point.
Well, yeah.
It's just part and parcel of ultra races.
Yeah.
What have you got from these adventures that you never expected to get?
Lots of stuff. I mean, really lots of stuff. They are, it's like a saying, type 2 fun. I don't know if you've heard that, but
no.
So type 1 fun is going on a roller coaster, eating an ice cream, all that stuff that's just great at the time.
Yeah.
Type 2 fun is stuff that at the time is awful, is horrible. You question why you're doing it. But then afterwards, you get the enjoyment when it's finished. So you get that sense of reward, like after something's completed. So you come home after these adventures and everything's better. You know, the fact that you can have a hot shower whenever you want is amazing. A cold beer out the fridge is incredible. The fact that you can have a pizza or a curry or, you know, whatever food you want is incredible. Like it sort of recalibrates your life and makes you realize how lucky you are every day just to sort of do all the stuff that you do and you take for granted. And you look back on these incredible kind of adventures, the places that you've been, the friends that you've made. I mean, it's a really tight-knit community. You know, you're going through quite a tough week with a load of like-minded individuals, and you're bound to make some good friendships. You know, it's how we met. I've met other guys and other people in these races. So, yeah, that kind of sense of that memory of having done something like it will be a milestone in your life. You'll kind of always remember it. You've been somewhere amazing. You've met some great people, and you've achieved something.
Similar kind of thing for me. You know, that recalibration. It does make you kind of appreciate things, and I think. Or what's your take, in fact, on this? And you know, do you think there's in modern society now it is a little bit too comfortable, and we do take things a little for granted sometimes?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. That's just the bubble that you live in, isn't it? And it doesn't matter what your bubble looks like. It's the same for everybody, I guess. But we have, or most of us have, very comfortable lives. You know, I drive to work in my car with my heated seats if it's cold, or my aircon if it's warm, and I can sit in my office all day. I get coffee when I want it. I can eat whatever I want for lunch. You know, you don't really have to suffer any sort of discomfort in your day-to-day existence for a lot of us, or certainly for me. So I think it's good to kind of get back to basics occasionally.
Do you have a mental mantra or like something you use when times get tough, and things that you say to yourself? Or do you just beat yourself up? Why have you done it again?
Yeah, you do. You probably one of the strangest things about certainly these ultra races is kind of how, it sounds like a weird thing to say, but how boring they are.
Yeah.
Which sounds ridiculous because you're in one of the most amazing places on the planet and you're doing something extreme and it's beautiful, but it is monotonous as well. You know, if you're running for 10, 11, 12 hours by yourself, your mind it plays kind of tricks on you, and you do have these conversations with yourself, and like trying to keep your mind occupied is probably one of the hardest things, actually. It's probably harder than the physical running. It's the actual kind of, which messages from my brain do I listen to and which ones do I ignore? Because there's always those little voices that are telling you you need to stop, or it's too hard, or quit, or give up. And then there's the other voices that are kind of, giving you the positive sign. So you do kind of have this crazy conversation in your head with yourself about what's going on.
And that's just the mental messages, I suppose. I mean, because there's obviously the physical messages as well, like your feet hurting, your knees hurting, your back hurting, and all that. And then does any of that? How often does it kind of carry over onto like everyday life? Do you sort of think, you know what, this is, at least I'm not bloody half dead in Namibia. So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Do you get that quite a bit, or?
Yeah, I do. I think, it does help recalibrate you. So if all of a sudden you're waiting for the bus and you're a little bit cold, you tend not to moan about it or worry about it really. Yeah, I think
Could
it's
always be worse.
Yeah, it's good for you in that sense, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did you start doing big adventures like this? I mean, how did this all sort of come about?
I think the first.
And what the reason why I've asked that is, perhaps we've got people sat there, they've never done a day's exercise in their life, and this is a great story, but they don't see themselves ever running through Namibia or the jungle or anything like that. But, is it possible for someone to get into these kind of things?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I'm not, I'm not some kind of athlete. I'm a very normal kind of guy. I'm quite active, but I'm not, I'm not a serious sort of professional or even amateur athlete at all. So anybody, I really believe that anybody can do these things with a little bit of work, a little bit of commitment, and a little bit of training. But also, it doesn't have to be these things. It could be something different. The stuff that I do to some people is nothing. There's people out there that do things that I think are extreme and incredible, and I find hard to believe how they do. And it's just about finding what your target is, and it's just something that should stretch you just a little bit. And that might just be a 5K park run, or it might be nothing to do with running whatsoever. It could be, losing weight, or it could be achieving something in the gym, or it could be, trekking somewhere, or it just doesn't really matter as long as it's a goal that you think is just slightly beyond you. I think just testing you just slightly.
I heard, it might have been you that said this really, when we was in Kenya, like choose your hard. Like everybody's life's hard.
Yeah.
Everyone's got stuff. Was it you? Might have been.
Yeah,
Been.
I'll take this.
It can't be
I like
Tony's
it,
wisdom.
so I'll take credit for it.
Yeah, and it was like, I know from some of the bigger guys that we get on the Conquer Food program, like that is a chore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Getting that big and staying that big is an effort.
Yeah.
And it's hard.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't want that life,
Yeah.
and neither would you, but they live it. And sorting it all out is hard.
Yeah.
So choose your hard. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And wasn't you then?
No, I like it though.
Yeah, you can have it.
I'll claim it. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and what's next? Have you got anything, or is there anything that you'd like to do that you've kind of not got round to yet? Or
Yeah, I don't have anything like on the immediate horizon. I finished the last desert race in December last year, so only a couple of months. So I think it's also good to kind of give yourself a little bit of a break and make sure that you're kind of hungry for something. The last 2 years have been quite busy, so I didn't really want to just come back and immediately start training for something else. I think I wanted to have a few weeks off just to kind of, get hungry for something else, like see something and think about what that was. But I know there'll be something, I know a friend will mention something, or I'll kind of see something and I'll go and give something a go. And it's quite nice not to know what that is yet.
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
And have you found that when people kind of hear and listen, you talk to people and you're going up to camp to do a talk in a minute, that people kind of feel inspired by it and want to do stuff themselves? Or
I hope so. I mean, people normally look at you just like you're crazy. Just because it's, when you talk about the distances and stuff involved, people just think it's crazy. But as you know, it's not. It is achievable by anybody. And then there's distances that I see people running that really are crazy. It's just about finding what's kind of difficult for you, really. So it's probably a mixture of people just think you're insane to kind of start with, and they can't comprehend it. But you've done some of these races, and you look at the people that run them, and you get some really good athletes at the front, but equally at the back you get very, and I mean this with complete respect, very average people, like normal people from all walks of life. They're not even necessarily in the best condition. They might be carrying some extra weight or whatever, but they've got the mindset and the attitude, and they've put the work in to get them there. And as you know, those people, more often than not, actually have a much harder time than the people at the front, and have to work a lot harder and actually show a lot more determination and
Yeah, I remember
resilience, because they're working harder than the guys at the front.
Yeah, and they're out for so much longer in the elements, and they need more food, more water, and more time on their feet, less time to turn themselves around. And I don't want to be one of those.
They're the people that inspire me kind of more than the people at the front, because I just think, I don't know how you've been out there for 16 hours and you've not slept, and now you've got to turn yourself around, and I don't know how they do it. I mean, hats off to them.
Yeah. So you've created your own challenge, and it'd be really good to talk about that. And I mean, what are the reasons why that you in fact, tell us what it is first of all, but then also
for the virtual run.
Yeah, the virtual run.
Yeah. So the last few races that I did, the ice and the desert and the jungle, I did them all to raise money for a charity that's very close to my heart called Rainbow's Children's Hospice, which is a hospice in the East Midlands that looks after life-limited children. So I've known about the charity for a while, and I've been involved at some level before in terms of kind of, my business has donated money, but I kind of wanted to do something a bit different and a bit special for them, because it is just such a unique place. It's really, really important, and I think 85% of their funding comes from donations, and only 15% comes from kind of government funding. So this place survives on the generosity of the public, basically.
And I suppose it's usually people that have been involved, because their kids have been unwell, and and at a time of with their life. I mean, I can't imagine ever, my children going through that, but then to put something together, raise some money at a time of their most need, I think it'd be good for them to have a helping hand, like.
Yeah. I mean, they need all the cash that they can get, really. So I like the idea of doing the races. Of course, there's something in it for me personally, but if I could make that have a bigger meaning and try and generate some money around it. So the 3 races, we raised about £45,000 for the hospice.
Incredible amount. That wasn't your goal, though, was it? Your goal was less, was it?
The goal was 25.
Yeah. There can't be many. I do some fundraising and all that kind of stuff, and rarely do I exceed my target.
Yeah. It's really hard.
It must have been a slog in itself.
It's harder than the running.
Yeah.
It really was.
Yeah.
It was the hardest part of it. It was not because people aren't kind and aren't generous, but you just have a sort of, you exhaust your pool of people quite quickly.
Yeah.
So it's really easy to get to a few grand, friends and family, everyone's chucking in some money and it's brilliant. And then you kind of realize that you've sort of run out of people to tap up, really.
To find more friends.
And businesses as well, they get hounded all the time with requests. So, trying to get money from business, it was really difficult. It was easily as big, if not a bigger job than actually training and running the events was raising the money, for sure.
Yeah. And so now you've done a virtual race on the back of that.
Yeah, so I thought it'd be, I wanted to carry on helping them. I don't want to do any more running for a bit. So the idea is I set up a virtual run, and the idea for this is it's for absolutely everybody. So, if you've never run before, or if you struggle to run, this is for you. Equally, if you're a good runner, it's great for you as well. So the idea is you sign up online and you pledge to run a 5K. So you can walk it, you can run it, you can split it up over 5 days if running is a challenge for you. If you're a great runner, go out and smash a PB or put a 20K bag on and run it. Challenge yourself is the kind of point of it. And then you just have to post a picture of that online using a hashtag, which is Rainbows 5K. And then you're rewarded. You get sent a medal. So I've designed and donated some medals. So you get a cool medal in the post as a kind of thank you, and 100% of your entry fee goes directly to the charity. So it's 20 quid to enter, which is hopefully something everybody can afford to do. I think 5K is a distance that is achievable for anybody, and I really mean anybody. My little lad who's 3 has done it.
I've seen that picture.
He went for a run around the park with me. It took a while, but he got there. So you get a nice little medal at the end of it, but more importantly, you've chucked a bit of money in the pot for a really good cause.
I like the way you said then that like you can basically create your own challenge, and I think it's easy to look at some people's challenges and go, that's incredible, and I could never do that. But challenge is very personal, isn't it? You know, it depends on your circumstances, your history, your mindset, your beliefs, your frame of reference, whatever. And I like the way that you've kind of done it so that everyone can give it a go, like and just do their best, because I think it's one of those things in it where you keep turning the dial, and you might start with a 5K right now, and that can very soon become a 10K, which will become a half marathon, which then can be, you know, I know someone who's just run the full length of New Zealand. You know what I mean? We've seen that recently on, you know, and there's some crazy stuff going on there, and they all started somewhere. So, so what's the link for that, Si?
So you can find it if you go to the main Rainbows website, which is rainbows.co.uk. You'll see it from there, or you can hit / virtual run. So rainbows.co.uk / virtual run.
And I'll stick a link in that in the
thank you.
In any show notes for this podcast, so you'll be able to follow through. So, well, not follow through, obviously. That's the last thing you want to be doing when you're running. So, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, no worries.
We're heading up to camp in a minute. You're going to do a little bit of a talk.
I am, yep.
Are you excited about that? Or?
I am, yeah. If I don't get heckled too badly.
Well, I'll leave, I promise to leave you alone. So, thanks again anyway for coming in.
Anytime.
And best of luck with your future.
Cheers. Thanks, mate.
I forgot the music. I'll get it going. Okay, that's been the Conquer Food Show with Si Davies. Like I said, I'm going to put all the links below these this podcast and this video. So join us in the next episode where we've got another incredible guest.